Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. I am Tenitra. That is Jarvis, and we appreciate you guys for sticking around and sticking with us to the tune of almost 3,000 subscribers on YouTube on our Locked On Sports Atlanta network. Appreciate you guys for that. Also appreciate you for continuing to download the podcast wherever you get your podcast and giving us 5-star reviews. And obviously, you continue to like what we do. So we appreciate that. And we invite you to invite somebody else to check us out. And Jarvis, we would like to extend an invitation, whether you're Dog Nation or whether you're Falcons diehards, Dirty Birds, folks are a buzz today because boy, oh boy, at least on the wish list, you wish that you could get this guy who's a former Georgia standout, currently a Bear, but you want him as a Falcon. Roquan Smith earlier today took to Twitter and basically said that he was requesting a trade because he felt like he was not valued. And apparently, he and the Bears cannot get right on his contract extension, right? So
Hmm.
he feels like he's not valued. He feels like his asking price and what they're willing to give him just don't mesh. And then, of course, looking around overall, he's not happy about what he's seeing with the direction of the Bears organization. So you already know. Ooh, 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 Atlanta Twitter was a buzz. It was trend. Roquan Smith was trending seconds after he sent that tweet out, Jarvis. So we got to just ask the question and just play around with the theory of it, right? Could there be a place, even though it's a loaded linebacker room for the Falcons? Could there be a place? Because although it's loaded, Jarvis, we also talk about the fact that it is arguably the most unknown unit on the defense for the Falcons.
You know what? To be honest with you, it's unknown. I'll say this: it's unknown, but I think there's some anticipation there, right? Because like you
Absolutely.
drafted a guy in Troy Anderson in the second round.
Yes.
You also have a guy who's up and coming in Michael Walker, who I've
Yes.
seen,
Yeah.
I've deemed that is my breakout player for this defense in 2022. So
Hmm.
there is some anticipation there. However, you talking about a player of Roquan Smith ilk.
Yeah.
There is a guy that is kind of sitting around chilling,
Yes.
trying to figure
Yeah.
out what's going on, and that's
Right.
his name is Deion Jones,
Yes.
and I think he wouldn't mind a fresh start, and I don't
Hmm.
think Chicago fans would be too upset if they're able to get a guy like Deion Jones in
Agreed.
return for Roquan Smith. Now,
Hmm.
I'm no salary cap expert or anything like that, but I do believe if the Chicago Bears are going to honor that request,
Hmm.
I know they wouldn't mind getting a guy like Deion Jones in return because I think that Deion Jones needs a fresh start. I think he
Agreed.
needs something that, kind of like, okay, like a new beginning, essentially.
Hmm.
Because you talk about even Roquan Smith talked about the tradition as far as linebackers in Chicago and being
Yeah.
drafted there. Like, you're talking about Buckets and Urlacher and all of
Hmm.
those guys, Lance Briggs and all those guys that played
Yes.
there and have done great things in Chicago. I think that is something that Terry Fontenot may need to consider. But for me personally, I really am excited about what this young core brings to the table and
Agreed.
what's actually what's ahead of us as far as looking at these guys and seeing these guys grow
Hmm.
into their positions and
Yeah.
whatever roles they are, they've been deemed. And
Hmm.
so I think that, yeah, it sounds good, and I think
Yeah.
I feel that's a way to get the trade done.
Hmm.
However, I do like the Michael Walkers of the world. I really want to see what Troy Anderson has to bring to the table, and I wouldn't mind seeing what Rashawn Evans is going to do
Hmm.
in his getting a second time around with DNPs.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think where we plug and play him is probably, like you said, in that Deion Jones spot, so to speak.
Right.
And I think because we know that Dean Pease uses variations. Yes, the base is 3-4, and yes, the Chicago base is 4-3. But ultimately speaking, Dean Pease is going to move everybody around anyway, and he's going to give you hybrid looks. And
You figure it
Roquan,
out with guys like that.
exactly right. You totally do. You will build that scheme around him. And from
Indeed.
what I can remember, early reports of him out of Georgia and then him even up in Chicago was that he's a quick learner. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got the talent, right? That's already there. But in addition to having that speed, that quickness, and that power, which is more along the lines of the linebackers that Dean Pease is looking for, you definitely have to at least give it a look. And when you think about the salary cap situation, you certainly know that, yeah, there may be some tweaks that need to be done, but it's not out of the question. So we will be watching to see what happens. But if the Falcons don't go that route, the Falcons nation, Falcons country needs to know that you've got a good base here that potentially is going to break out in ways that will even be unexpected by you. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about some things that could change when you have somebody like Roquan Smith coming out and saying, let me go, free me. And Kevin Durant, well, you know. So if you want to know again about the Kevin Durant, saga, if you will, and the Roquan Smith saga, and how those things might actually impact betting, Jarvis, we know that you can find out that information on BetOnline.
No doubt, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. If you're trying to figure out where Kevin Durant is going to end up, if you're trying to figure out whether or not Roquan Smith gets traded, if he does get traded, what team is he going to? What are the
Mm-hmm.
odds for that? Go to BetOnline.net. You can find it out because it's the fastest, easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events. And if you want to go to some ancillary sports, you figure that you can't make no money betting on NFL or in Major League Baseball. They have MMA, boxing, and golf just for you. So go ahead and check those guys out. Now, T, the Falcons are playing their first preseason game, right? So I went to betonline.net and saw what the over-under was. The over-under
Yes.
is 35 and a half. Ooh, I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
Now, if you kind of not to know whether or not you want to go to over under, BetOnline
Mm-hmm.
got all the information you need. They got podcasts and everything just for you, so you can make the best this informed decision, so you can make some money. So 'cause that's what it's all about, right? So now, just to head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
And speaking of a start of a game, Friday will be the start of game one of the preseason for the Falcons. Of course, they are heading up to Detroit to take on the Lions. And Jarvis and I had an opportunity to take a sneak peek into how they were wrapping up that second week and then moving into preparation for game day. And we talked, of course, about what we saw in Jalen Hawkins, a lot of that leadership ability that's now showing you that he's matching his on field prowess with his off field as well. So it's really coming together for him. But another guy that we talked about, and he's one who we saw kind of bantering with Jalen on the sidelines, was Michael Walker. And so you look at Michael Walker bantering with Jalen Hawkins, but you also look at Jalen having some really intense conversation, both on the field after plays and even on the sidelines with Richie Grant. And you look and you say to yourself, we might have a solid tandem in the making here. So, Jarvis, what do you think about the possibility of, young as they are, being possibly one of the best safety tandems in, dare we say it, the entire league?
You know what? I don't know that I can say that they're going to be the best in the league, but I think it's going to be probably one of the better safety talents that you've seen back there, and for that have donned a Falcons uniform in quite some time, right? Because you talk about these guys, one thing that they have in common, and they've been joined at the hip just from if you just seen after practice, where it be during practice, like you mentioned, and those guys have been really kind of working together, saying, "Hey, we got to figure this thing out." But
Yeah.
the similarities that I do like in these guys is both of these guys have a knack for being around the football. And we know that Jalen Hawkins, showed that last year. There were some flashes last year. And
Mm-hmm.
Richie Grant just recently picked off Marcus Mariota in practice. And I think that when you think about the old moniker, you practice how you play, right? And that's and when you have a guy that's constantly around the football, being in the right spot, a lot of the times when you're in where you need to be, a guy like Richie Grant is the type of guy that's going to make that play, because that's why the Falcons fell in love with him down in the Senior Bowl, because he's a ball hawking type guy.
Yeah.
And I think that also Richie Grant, yeah, I feel like he has something to prove.
Oh,
Like,
no question.
because
No
I know he
question.
heard, I know he heard the naysayers last year, and because he was he got thrust into a position that
Right.
he's never really played before like
Mhm.
that, in the nickel spot with
Mhm.
Isaiah Oliver going down, and he
Right.
did the best job he could do
Hmm.
there, but now he's back at home and
Yeah.
he's exactly where he needs to be at that free safety spot. So I think there's a good chance that you
Mhm.
could see something. You should see a good recipe for success for those two on the back end of that defense.
Yeah, and when you think about the best tandems in the league, and you think about a Kevin Byard or an Amani Hooker, over in Tennessee, that's sort of the bar for you, if you will, or Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams out in Seattle. Those are sort of the bars,
Indeed.
if you will. So yeah, they've got a ways to go, but you know who I feel like doesn't have as far to go. I believe that the corner tandem is where it's at for the Falcons. So
Okay.
when I look at the corner talent and the likes of a Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Peters in particular, or you look at Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, and then I compare them to an AJ Terrell and a Casey Hayward. I'm like, yeah, now I think that is definitely where the Falcons are going to feast. And speaking of feast, apparently a feast for one particular couple might have been about more than just food. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some goats who are celebrating birthdays today on the other side and for the culture right here on ATL Day Ones.